Eleanor had finally done it. Years of saving, penny by careful penny, combined with the modest inheritance left by her beloved grandmother, had allowed her to purchase her first apartment. It wasn't grand, but it was hers, a cozy third-floor walk-up in a quiet neighborhood with tree-lined streets. She poured her heart into making it a home. Every paint color was chosen with care, every piece of furniture a treasure hunted down and lovingly placed. Her mother, a woman of quiet strength and endless support, had helped her sew curtains and choose cheerful pillows for the sofa. Each item held a memory, a story, making the small space feel imbued with love and hope. Eleanor imagined building her future here, surrounded by these tangible symbols of her dreams. Leaving for her job as a librarian each morning, she would glance back, a grateful smile on her face, knowing she had finally created her own sanctuary. The peace of her life shattered one ordinary Tuesday afternoon. The phone rang, and the voice on the other end was calm, professional, and utterly terrifying. It was the local hospital. Her mother had suffered a severe stroke and had been found unconscious at home by a neighbor. Eleanor's world tilted. Her mother, her anchor, her closest friend, was suddenly fighting for her life. Rushing to the hospital, her heart heavy with dread, she received the doctor's grim assessment. Her mother was in a critical but stable condition. The stroke had been severe. They wouldn't know the full extent of the damage until she woke up. The uncertainty was a suffocating weight, a dark cloud settling over Eleanor's carefully constructed life. When her mother finally regained consciousness, the reality of their new normal was stark and heartbreaking. The stroke had left her weak, the entire left side of her body affected. Her speech was slurred, making communication a painful struggle. Eleanor watched, her heart aching, as the vibrant woman who had always been her rock now struggled with even the simplest tasks. There was gratitude that her mother was alive, but it was mingled with a profound sadness for the challenges that lay ahead. The following months were a blur of hospital visits, doctor's appointments, and the crushing weight of financial worry. Her mother needed constant care. Hiring a full-time caregiver was impossible on Eleanor's modest librarian salary. The difficult decision had to be made. She would leave her job to become her mother's primary caregiver. They moved back into her mother's small old house. It was a tight squeeze, not at all suited to her mother's new needs. The narrow hallways, the steep steps to the bathroom, everything felt like an obstacle course. Eleanor's beloved apartment, her sanctuary, was no longer an option either. It was on the third floor of a building with no elevator, impossible for her mother in a wheelchair. Life became a relentless cycle of caregiving and worrying about money. Her mother's pension helped, but it wasn't enough to cover the mounting expenses, medications, physical therapy sessions, speech therapy, specialized equipment. The financial strain was constant, a knot of anxiety in Eleanor's stomach. The painful truth became undeniable. To afford her mother's care, she would have to sell her apartment, the home she had poured her heart and soul into, the symbol of her independence and dreams. It was a crushing blow, a sacrifice that felt impossibly heavy. But her mother's health and well-being were paramount. Eleanor told herself she was young, she could save again, build another home someday. But the ache of letting go of her first true home was deep. Selling the apartment provided some much-needed financial breathing room, but caring for her mother in the small, cramped house was still a daily struggle. The lack of space made everything harder, especially bathing and moving around. Eleanor began to search for a new place, something more accessible, something that could accommodate her mother's needs and offer a little more space for them both. That's when she saw the advertisement for the old neglected house on the edge of town. It had been empty for decades, a mysterious, slightly unsettling presence in the neighborhood. It was city property, due to unpaid taxes and no known heirs, and it was being sold for a surprisingly low price, despite its obvious state of disrepair. The pictures showed a large, rambling house with spacious rooms and a big backyard. It seemed perfect for her mother's mobility issues. It was a huge undertaking, clearly needing extensive renovations. But the price was right. With the money from the apartment sale, it was a possibility. Eleanor took the leap. On the day she went to sign the papers at the city office, The clerk mentioned offhandedly that the previous owners had left everything behind, and that according to the terms of the sale, all contents of the house now belonged to her. Eleanor blinked, surprised. "So," she joked faintly, "if I find a box of gold bars in there, it's mine?" The clerk, a stern-faced woman, looked at her seriously. "Indeed," she confirmed. "The sale includes all contents." Driving to the house with the keys in her hand, Eleanor felt a mixture of excitement and trepidation. She had only seen the outside before. Now she was about to step into a place that had been sealed off from the world for generations. Opening the front door was like stepping back in time and into a world of neglect. Dust motes danced in the shafts of light filtering through the grimy windows. Every surface was coated in a thick layer of grime. The furniture was old, draped in faded sheets or simply left exposed, covered in cobwebs. The walls were peeling, the floorboards creaked ominously, and the air smelled stale and musty. It was daunting. Was this really a good idea? But the need for a suitable home for her mother spurred her on. She enlisted the help of a few kind friends who volunteered their weekend. Armed with brooms, mops, buckets, and cleaning supplies, they descended upon the house. It was hard, backbreaking work, but fueled by Eleanor's determination and the camaraderie of friendship, the house slowly began to transform. Layers of dirt were scrubbed away, windows were washed, allowing sunlight to stream in, breathing life into the neglected rooms. It was far from perfect, still needing significant repairs, but it was clean, brighter, and felt less like a tomb and more like a possibility. Amidst the cleaning chaos, in one of the dusty bedrooms, Eleanor stumbled upon several boxes tucked away in a closet. They were heavy and covered in years of dust. Curiosity piqued, she opened the first one. Inside, carefully wrapped in tissue paper, were old books, their covers faded, but with beautiful handwritten inscriptions inside. The next box held bundles of letters, tied with ribbon, the paper yellowed with age. And in the last box, a collection of black and white photographs, faces from a bygone era smiling out at her. Eleanor felt a wave of emotion wash over her. These weren't just things. They were fragments of lives lived within these walls. She couldn't just throw them away. They deserved to be seen, to be remembered. She set the boxes aside, promising herself she would go through them properly later. Despite the unfinished renovations, the house was now habitable, more spacious and accessible for her mother than the old one. They moved in, and a new chapter began. The large windows in the main living area let in glorious sunshine, flooding the room with light and warmth, a stark contrast to the cramped, dimly lit rooms of their previous house. Eleanor continued to work on the house, painting walls, stripping wallpaper, fixing what she could herself, learning as she went. Her mother, seated in her wheelchair by a sunny window, would watch her, offering quiet encouragement, her presence a constant source of motivation. Slowly, painstakingly, her mother was making progress in her recovery too. Physical therapy was helping her regain some movement, and her speech was becoming clearer, though still slow. Caring for the house and caring for her mother felt intertwined, each act of restoration fueling the other. One rainy afternoon, taking a break from painting, Eleanor finally opened the boxes of forgotten treasures. She carefully unwrapped the letters, reading the elegant cursive script. They were love letters, exchanged between a man and a woman. She looked at the photographs, a wedding, a family picnic, a man sitting at a desk, writing. The same names appeared again and again in the letters and book inscriptions. To my dearest Elizabeth, signed Charles. My beloved Charles, signed Elizabeth. The man in the photographs, with his kind eyes and thoughtful expression, was Charles. Intrigued, Eleanor felt a growing desire to know who these people were, whose lives had left such a poignant echo in this old house. She searched online, typing in the names Charles and Elizabeth, adding phrases like old house, local history. It was a long shot, but she felt a pull she couldn't ignore. Days turned into weeks as she delved deeper, piecing together fragmented information. And then she found it. An article about a renowned author, a literary figure from the mid-20th century, whose name was Charles Hubert, and his wife, Elizabeth. The dates, the locations mentioned in the letters, they all matched. The photographs, They were of the celebrated author and his wife. Eleanor's heart hammered in her chest. She was holding in her hands not just old letters, but the personal mementos of a famous writer. As she continued to sort through the boxes, her astonishment grew. Among the letters and photographs, she found something else. Handwritten manuscripts, drafts of novels, poems, essays. Some were published works, others seemed to be earlier versions or perhaps unpublished pieces. This wasn't just a collection of personal effects. It was a literary treasure trove. Overwhelmed by the discovery, Eleanor knew she needed expert advice. She contacted a local antique and rare book appraiser, a kind, knowledgeable older gentleman named Mr. Davison. She carefully packed the boxes and brought them to his office, her hands trembling slightly. Mr. Davison examined the items with quiet reverence. As he looked through the letters, the photographs, and especially the manuscripts, his eyes widened. "My dear," he said softly, looking up at Eleanor, "do you have any idea what you found here? This is, this is quite extraordinary. The personal correspondence of Charles Hubert, his private photographs, and these manuscripts, these are priceless." He explained the historical and literary significance of the collection. Charles Hubert was a beloved author, his work still read and admired by many. Collectors and institutions would be highly interested in acquiring such a unique and personal collection. Mr. Davison advised her that the best course of action would likely be to put the collection up for auction. Eleanor was stunned. She had simply wanted to find a home for her mother, and instead she had stumbled upon a fortune hidden in dusty boxes. It felt unreal. Before doing anything, she decided to go back to the city office to clarify the terms of the sale once more. The same stern-faced clerk confirmed again, without hesitation, that the sale of the house included absolutely everything inside. With no known heirs, legally, the contents were hers. The auction was arranged, managed by Mr. Davison, who ensured everything was handled with the utmost care and respect for the collection. The news of the discovery spread within the literary world, attracting avid collectors and fans of Charles Hubert. The day of the auction was a whirlwind. Bids flew in from around the world. The final sale price was far beyond anything Eleanor could have imagined, enough to not only cover all of her mother's medical expenses, both current and future, but also to complete the renovations on the old house, turning it into the comfortable, accessible home they both needed. The old house, once a symbol of neglect and abandonment, was transformed. It became a warm, welcoming space, filled with light and laughter. Eleanor's mother, her health slowly improving, could move around freely in her wheelchair, enjoying the spacious rooms in the sunny backyard. Eleanor, no longer burdened by financial worry, could focus on caring for her mother and turning the old house into a beautiful home. Looking back, Eleanor realized the extraordinary path her life had taken. A desperate decision to sell her beloved apartment had led her to a neglected house, which held not just shelter, but a hidden treasure. Her intuition, her simple respect for the past and the lives lived before her, had been rewarded in the most unexpected way. She had sought a practical solution to a difficult problem and had instead found a story, a connection to history, and the means to secure her mother's well-being and build a future they both deserved. The old house, filled with the echoes of past lives, was now alive with the present, a testament to the unexpected turns of fate and the profound rewards of simple human kindness and respect.